Today we discuss which is worse, anabolic steroids or the Sesh. Proper 12. Not one is only not when you certified me, it's a celebration. You bring home. Baby, we done it. Break out the red panties. I could do better. This video is inspired by a question that I received on my What Really Happens When You Quit Steroids video. If you missed that video, it's fine. It's fine. It's just a loud car. It's all good. That's my more mature way of coping with stress now, so I meditate quickly. I don't like people that... That might have been the bloke that I pretend... To get this right, is a geezer that drives down my road at 7 AM every morning. Does my head in. Anyway, I managed to grab him the other day because he pulled over. I said, listen here, you drove up and down the road, didn't you? He said, yeah. I said, I've got a daughter. I ain't got a daughter. I said, I've got a daughter, right? And every time we drive past our gaff, she jolts like that. She's really scared of your car. Can you stop? He said, I'm so sorry. He said, I'm so sorry. I've got kids and all. And I said, you know what it's like then. So every time he comes around the corner, you still hear him a little bit, but it's more of a... Instead of a... Just think, these people with these sort of cars, who do you think you're impressing? None of us on this street go, oh my God, do it more. Do it louder. Yeah? So, small battle. I feel like I did put it on my Instagram and a couple of people seemed to follow me on this street I didn't know about and they was giving me claps. Not the clap. Right, back to went off on a bit of a mad tangent then. Back to the reason why we're doing this video, inspired by a question that I received from a fella called, I presume he's a fella, can never be too sure in 2023. Let's check his profile just in case so we don't offend the bloke. IFBB Men's Bikini Pro. That's not a category. Maybe he's trying to be funny. Yeah, he must be. God, I thought I really offended him then. Hey Tom, nuanced question, but which is more harmful? A guy that gets on the Sesh frequently or a blast and cruiser? I feel like it should be or a blasterer and cruiserer. It's a fitting question because I went on a Sesh yesterday. If you can call it a Sesh, went out at 8, got back at 2, had a few beers, listened to Fred again, and then me and my best mate fell asleep on different sofas whilst watching Match of the Day. So a bit different to like a proper Sesh, which in my eyes is go out, continue the Sesh in the kitchen somewhere, gets to 7 AM, the birds start chirping, you start contemplating life, you go home, stare at the ceiling. That I can't do that no more. It's been a long time since I've done that. But I think this is actually a really good question and one that we can really dissect. So strap in. I'm a little hungover still, so if there's a few jump cuts in this video, it's because I don't know where I'm going with it. I might just one take Tony it and continue. But let's actually scientifically break down the two and we can compare. So someone that gets on the Sesh frequently, they're exposing themselves to toxic substances. We're talking recreational drugs. We're talking alcohol in excessive consumption. Okay? Not great for anyone really, apart from the Moors. I say the Moors, we can handle it. Due to like, I was going to call her a cockroach then, but I mean in a really endearing way. Mum, if you're watching this, you know what I mean. Our grandma she survived, like, lives in a care home, survived all the waves of COVID, sepsis, broken wrists. I mean, I'm not joking. This woman, if I got a call from the care home and said it's gone up in flames, I'd say, she's still alive though, isn't she? And they'd say, yeah. So we seem to handle toxicity quite well, maybe due to like a genetic predisposition. It was always an ongoing joke whenever I was blasting and cruising that we compare our blood work, and mine tended to be quite good. We'll come on to my blood work in a second. But okay, have I lost you? Keep watching. Someone who seshes frequently, they're exposing themselves to toxic substances on a frequent basis. Not ideal, okay? What also is a byproduct of sesh? Sleep. Lack of and poor quality. Like me going out yesterday, I had about 4 hours sleep. Tonight's sleep, the sleep quality is probably low. I'm dreading what my whoop says tomorrow. And then Monday, by Tuesday, I'm all right. If you're doing that every week for a month, that's shocking. You've only got to listen to the likes of Huberman and Matthew Walker, which I read that book, Why We Sleep, in it. I don't know whether it was a good or a bad thing. It freaked me out. because it just highlighted how detrimental poor sleep is to everyone, really. Someone that sessions frequently. Have I still got you? Is this a good video? I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't film hungover. I feel like it is a good video. I need to smash the thumbnail. I'm thinking like half my face with a cigarette, half my face on like a steroid thing. Who knows yet? I've not done it. Anyway, sesh frequently. Toxic substances, alcohol, poor sleep. Also a byproduct of the sesh, bad food. What do? You go to McDonald's, you go KFC. So you're exposing the body to some pretty nasty elements versus someone that blasts and cruises. Now, for people that are watching this, if this video seems to have appeared on their timeline and they know nothing about steroids, let me educate you a little bit. Blasting and cruising is a concept whereby you stay on anabolics for a prolonged period of time. And during that prolonged period of time, you go through different phases whereby you take a lot of anabolics versus not a lot of anabolics. So a cruise phase is whereby you are mimicking your natural testosterone levels pre-cycle. This is what's very important if anyone's watching that does kind of jump into the world of bodybuilding and want to go into blasting and cruising. It's important to see where your levels are at. And I'm talking about lipids, I'm talking about kidney, liver function pre-cycle. And then when you cruise, the idea is to get your lipids and get your kidney and liver function back into a normal range. Testosterone in particular, as an example, my natural range is around about 18 to 20 nanomolar. So when I cruise, I'm trying to create a dose of testosterone that mimics that 18 to 20 nanomolar, okay? And then when you blast, you start to include and incorporate more compounds, like Tren as an example. This is Tren, by the way. I mean, the mere sight of this sends shivers down my spine. I mean, look at it. It's orange. That stuff used to go in my body. He's good, though. No, don't say that. So blasting, as you can imagine, like blast off, is essentially incorporating a magnitude of different compounds. Testosterone, Trenbolone, maybe like an MPP, orals as an example, and you're taking yourself from a normal range into like a super physiological range. Now, what comes with that, as I've just mentioned, is exposure to your lipids. So we can actually look at my blood work. I've got all of my tests here from years ago. So I've been working with a company called MiniCheck since my West Wickham flat, which was 6 or 7 years ago. So I use these guys and girls for a long time. As I said, my cholesterol, these are my bloods whilst on cycle. I don't exactly know what I was taking, but based on where my testosterone was, as you can see, 180 nanomolar, which is about 3, 6, 9, 12, about 4 times the natural limit. You can see that my cholesterol on cycle was not too bad. As I said, I'm not someone that ever responds really badly, even in the height of my blast. Maybe due to my genetics, maybe due to my prioritization of sleep, recovery, supplementation. I never had really bad blood work, even on. It was like an ongoing joke. My HDL used to take a bit of a hit, or used to be on the lower side, but total cholesterol, LDL, used to be fairly okay. Triglycerides as well. There's a couple of times whereby my triglycerides were higher, but that was due to the fact that the environment which I was in, usually in like a height of an off season, due to the excessive food consumption and maybe the choices of food that I was eating, wasn't great. So you've also got to look at someone that does blast and cruise. And usually a lot of these athletes, because they are athletes at the end of the day, I do consider kind of bodybuilders as athletes. You might disagree. But what goes hand in hand with this exposure to compounds like Tren and taking yourself out of normal into super physiological ranges is the lifestyle. So when you're asking that question, Tall Biscuit, what's worse? You have to look at what happens when you are dealing with someone who is like a true out and out bodybuilder that respects and understands like their health and well-being, because a lot of these bodybuilders won't be exposing themselves to recreational drugs or alcohol when blasting and cruising. I certainly did it. I think in my 10 years, there was one case whereby I would have still been in a blast, and that was when I went to Ibiza, and that absolutely wrecked my head, as you know. But I would never drink or take drugs in a blast. When I was cruising, because it was like my normal time, then I would. But a lot of these guys and girls that are blasting and cruising tend to have very, very solid lifestyles and are in touch with their well-being, and they're getting constant blood work, and they're prioritizing sleep, and they're prioritizing health supplementation and good food and good digestion. That's why it's a really interesting debate when you, excuse me, it's a really interesting debate and discussion when you compare someone who does take blasting and cruising seriously as a bodybuilder versus someone who goes on the sesh frequently. Now, my personal opinion is, if you are indeed someone that takes great care of themselves when blasting and cruising, I think that's probably healthier than someone that is exposing themselves to alcohol and recreational drugs on a frequent basis, poor sleep, bad food. So that's a really interesting take on it. Now, I think what's important is to then look at the long-term effects of people that take anabolic steroids, which I think we're in a position now whereby we're sort of seeing that knock-on impact. We're seeing quite a large spate of modern-day bodybuilders that are passing away. We're also seeing new research on the detrimental effects of blasting and cruising on mental health, which is something that Dr. Dean spoke about. Excuse me. I was going to have a swig of that proper 12 then. I thought that would be a really bad idea. It's something that Dr. Dean spoke about when we were on the Men's Health podcast, which if I can find it, I'll link below. But give that a watch, because it highlights the negative impact, the long-term negative impact on blasting and cruising. You've got to almost look at long-term blasting and cruising anabolic steroids as almost like a slow-released ecstasy tab in a way, in the sense that you are seeing super heightened levels of serotonin in individuals, and when they come off, they get this massive crash. Okay, and I think long-term impacts and long-term effects of anabolic steroids on individuals' mental health is quite worrying. So then that kind of draws you back into, right, where are we here? The long-term impact of blasting and cruising on mental health and physical health versus someone that sessions quite frequently. I mean, I responded in that comment section, pick your poison. Because I think if you are smart with the way that you blast and cruise, and you almost give yourself maybe like an actual shelf life and say, okay, I'm going to throw myself into the deep end with anabolic steroids, and I'm going to try and push my body and my mind and my goal of becoming better to the extreme for like a period of time, like 5 years as an example, or actually set yourself like, I'm going to do this for 10 years, I'm going to see how I get on, and then I'm going to pull back. That in itself is difficult, because as we know, you get the addictive effects of anabolic steroids, not necessarily through the substance, but through the effect. I certainly struggled with that massively. I was almost addicted to what the steroid was giving me in terms of my confidence, my look. I was fearful of the impact of what steroids would do when I came off, on my performance, on how I'd perform in the gym, how I would interact with other people. So you've got to take that into consideration as well. But I would say, out of the two, if you were to put a gun to my head, please don't. If you were to put a gun to my head and say, what do you think is worse, Tom? I would go as far as to say session frequently is probably worse than someone that blasts and cruises. A blaster and cruiser. That would be my take. I'm really interested to hear what you guys and girls think, because there's going to be people that are watching this that maybe haven't gone down the route of anabolic steroids that would probably say steroids are far worse. You know, they might be like just seshes. So it's really interesting to hear your thoughts. Just comment below. I hope this video provided a little bit of insight. I really wanted to do a video on this because I thought when I first read the question, I was like, yeah, that's actually quite a good concept to discuss. Is this even a good video? I'm going to post it anyway, because if I don't, breaks the cycle. I'm going to do a video on trend soon. That stuff down there. I feel like it gets a lot of engagement. But yeah, hey look, a little Sunday discussion. I hope you're all well. I thought it'd be really interesting if we broke down whether or not blasting and cruising is worse or less or not worse. You know what I mean. I'm going to end the video here because I think I'm losing you. So you enjoy your Monday night. I'm going to say bye-bye now. Thank you, good night. Much love.